Period House Interiors and Details Part 4 Services. This part is about services and facilities including cooking, water, washing up and sanitation. Many improvements were the result of regulations such as Public Health Acts, most notably those of 1848 and 1875. There were some other improvements to services, for example the change from wooden water pipes to cast iron in the 1820s. Until the Edwardian period, the front smelt of horse dung and the back of human waste. Both were recycled. Late Georgian services were located in the basement and at the back of the house. In both large and medium, the level of the back was the original ground level. The basement was not used by the family but by the servants, hence expressions such as below stairs or upstairs and downstairs. Servants and tradesmen had access through the door in the front area. The servants also had an additional workspace, a paved area at the back. There might be a water butt there. The services of late Georgian, Regency and early Victorian mediums were all packed into this small back area. The distinction between family and service continued when rear extensions developed. There was at least one step down from the hall to the kitchen. In Edwardian mediums, there might still be a step down from the kitchen or family room to the scullery. Cooking. In the late Georgian period, cooking was possible on open fires in domestic grates, using the cheeks of the grate and devices ranging from trivets to bottle jacks. In large and mediums of this period, the kitchen was in the basement at the front, where it got daylight from windows or a light well. Rooms in the basement without natural light were used as stores. Large houses might have piped water. This came in at the front, from wooden pipes in the street. Steam engines and cast iron pipes improved water services. By the 1820s, water companies were able to offer a high or a low service. The more expensive high-pressure service enabled water to be piped upstairs. The kitchen fire was an open range. Made of cast iron, it was set in a brick hearth fitted with flues like an ordinary fireplace. It was first modified by a slider to contain the size of the fire, and then by incorporating ovens and a boiler to heat water. From the 1780s, these modified ranges were called kitcheners. In the Regency and early Victorian period, they became fully enclosed. A new service room, the scullery, was introduced for washing up. As usual, this first appeared in large houses. In these, the kitchen was moved back out of the main body of the house to keep it free from the smells like frying and fat. In its new position, the kitchen could be lit by a skylight. Houses like these would have facilities for their carriage and horses in mews nearby. In London and Brighton houses, the mews was at the back next to the kitchen, but the carriage would always have to be brought round to the front. In the Regency and early Victorian period, the basement accommodated the butler and the housekeeper and the servants' hall. Because of the half basement, mediums had a door at the front. In the late Victorian period, kitchen ranges were still being built into the rear extensions of suburban mediums. By this time, dressers had also become a standard fitting in kitchens. Food was kept fresh in the larder, a forerunner of the refrigerator. It was a small room or cupboard which was usually on an outside wall, with, perhaps, a gauze window. During the 1880s, alternatives to solid fuel began to appear in the form of gas rings and electric kettles. In the Edwardian period, gas cookers began to rival the kitchen range. In interwar mediums, the gas cooker replaced the kitchen range. They were cheaper, lighter and freestanding, and soon were a standard fitting in newly built homes. They were so much smaller than the cast iron ranges that they could be placed in the smaller scullery, allowing the kitchen to become a family room. The scullery became a narrow space filled with equipment for washing up and laundry. Known as a kitchenette, there was no space for a larder, but they could have fitted cabinets with either solid or glazed doors. Another interwar innovation was the refrigerator. This was an expensive alternative to the larder. Gas refrigerators successfully competed with electric during this period. They claimed to be silent and unable to interfere with the wireless. Rubbish, ash and cinders from the coal fires were big problems. It was all kept for collection by dustmen. They took it to ash heaps where it was sifted through and recycled for bricks and fertilizer. In late Georgian houses, both coal and ash were stored in the cellars under the pavement at the front. This applied to large houses and those mediums which had an area at the front. This continued for their Regency and early Victorian equivalents. Coal was delivered into the cellar through a coal hole. Dustmen had access from the area. The nightmen carried sewage through the basement of large houses, but in mediums, both dust and sewage had to go through the house. Later Victorian suburban mediums had coal holes in front of the doorstep so the coal could be poured into the cellar. Bog houses or privies were built at the back. In large houses these might be landscaped into as much garden as there was, with a cesspit underneath. The privy of the medium might be a hole in a seat over a bucket. The privies weren't used by the family. They used chamber pots, which were kept discreetly in closed stools or commodes, cabinets or just under the bed. The servants had to take them and pour their contents into the privy or the cesspit. Some large houses had drains from the cesspit to the public sewer under the road, but leaks were common, which were unpleasant and unhealthy. Usually cesspits had to be emptied by hand. This could only be done between midnight and dawn by night soul men, also known as nightmen or scavengers. They were paid for this service and could sell the raw sewage as fertilizers for fields and market gardens on the edge of town. The water closet, or WC, was developed from designs patented in the 1770s. They were intended to eliminate the foul smell which came from the open pipe to the sewer. The WC was meant to do this with its water trap, but when it flushed, it vented so the smell escaped. Not only that, but the early pan types were complicated and fouled easily. Improvements eventually led to the pedestal washdown. This was a freestanding unit which was mass-produced by ceramic companies like Doulton and Twyford's. The siphonic system was another improvement. The improved water closets had large flushing rims, which, combined with high-level systems, produced a more efficient flush. Not even members of the arts and crafts movement objected to these common products of industry. Access for services. In medium houses of the mid-Victorian period, the kitchen was in the rear extension or service wing. The ash, coal bins and a water closet were outside. Access for dustmen and sewage disposal was vital to public health, but it remained a problem for terraced houses. The WC had been allowed to be connected to the main sewer since the beginning of the Regency and early Victorian period. This could cause flooding when drains overflowed. The 1848 Public Health Act attempted to address problems like these, but it was not until after the Act of 1875 that builders had to submit a drainage plan and show where the ash and dust were to be stored. This made the back much more pleasant and a possible recreation area. The intercepting trap finally stopped the smell from the main sewer venting. This had been the original reason for the invention of the WC. The back stopped smelling of sewage, making gardens attractive enough for the drawing room to open onto it. The new lean-to closet extension could accommodate a scullery. This could have a piped water supply. The kitchen also moved further back in the medium, but access to the back was still through the house or a back lane if there was one. From the Edwardian period, semi-detached houses had access via their open side. The estates built by interwar developers even allowed space for service lanes. These could also provide access for motorhomes or garages. Period house interiors and details will continue in part 5, which will present the characteristic colours and patterns of the architectural eras. Thank you for watching.